Marvel Vs Capcom Infinite should be something everybody should be looking forward to. Pitching the Marvel superheroes and villains against the varied cast of Capcom famous properties should really be a hit. But with Capcom's previous fighting game Street Fighter V coming up short in various departments, many have been wondering will Infinite live up to the series' high standards, and the end result is mixed to say the least. Let's start off with the elephant in the room. Marvel vs Capcom Infinite has a decent amount of content for single players straight out the box, unlike Street Fighter V. The game's biggest mode is the story mode, which sees the Marvel and Capcom stars trying to take down Ultron Sigma and his evil regime. This 3 to 4 hour story sees you tackling a load of fights, and it's pretty decent stuff. The story itself is nothing really that amazing, but does make more sense than Tekken 7's story mode, and the script is rather light-hearted with the odd laugh-out-loud moment reminiscent of a Saturday morning cartoon. The fights in the story mode are your typical fare, and there isn't really nothing surprising in the gameplay department, though I will say you will certainly get fed up fighting loads of Ultron drones by the end of the story mode, as these fights feel very much like padding to make the game longer. The Marvel vs Capcom series has fondly been remembered and well known for its 3v3 battles, but the game has quite controversially ditched this in favour of a 2v2 battles instead. I gather this change is done to make the game more appealing for casual players, but series regulars shouldn't moan as there was a cool new inclusion in the Infinity Stones. So instead of a third character in battle, you now have a choice of 6 Infinity Stones, one to take into battle with you, and these stones do actually prove rather useful in battle. Each stone has a different ability, like stealing health from another player to a quick dash and firing a range attack. Infinity Stones also have a meter, and once it's filled you can use them to deliver a powerful burst that, depending on the stone, can do some rather cool attacks. For example, there's a stone that can trap your opponent in a box for a short while, limiting their movement, to even a stone that allows both of your characters to appear on the screen at the same time to attack the opponent. Mixing and experimenting with the Infinity Stones and trying to find cool new ways to use them is a huge joy, and seriously one of the best mechanics I've seen in a fighting game. More of this please, Capcom. The fights play out pretty similar to Tekken Tag Tournament, as you can swap out characters anytime you like. A nice move is that you can swap out characters mid-combo to continue your combo with a different character. It's really cool and really fun to use. In a move to get more players to enjoy the game, Capcom has now included something called the auto combo system, which sees you pulling off a combo by just hammering the square button. It's a simple idea and it does work well, and it allows less experienced players to pull off decent moves. The Marvel vs Capcom games have always been known for their wide range of characters from both universes, and unfortunately Infinite feels like a bit of a step back. With only 30 characters, you do kind of feel shortchanged compared to older entries which had up to 50 characters. And while you do get some great characters like Doctor Strange, Dante, Iron Man and Gamora, there feels like there's plenty of holes where characters should have been. The lack of any X-Men and Fantastic Four characters is a huge shame, and yes, this could be due to the focus on more of Marvel Cinematic Universe, but even big characters from those films like Loki, Ant-Man, Scarlet Witch, Black Widow and Nick Fury don't even appear. As on the Capcom side, it does fare a little bit better, with some well-known and lesser-known characters making the cut. But well-known characters such as Phoenix Wright, Amaterasu, Jill Valentine and Beautiful Joe are absent, which is a shame, and it does make the whole roster feel like a missed opportunity. Infinite does feature a decent range of stages to fight on, and they all look pretty cool, as most stages are a mix of the Marvel and Capcom worlds. Going through the story mode allows you to unlock more stages to play on, as when you first start the game there's only a handful to play on. Now back to the single player stuff, and arcade mode was unforgivably not included in Street Fighter V. But thankfully Infinite does have an arcade mode, and it's a lengthy one too, with 6 to 7 battles that ends with a fun boss against Ultron Omega. It's all very enjoyable stuff. It's just a shame that there's no endings for any of the characters whatsoever, which seems a bit lazy and cheap in my opinion. One mode that expert players will probably get the most out of is Mission Mode, which acts as both as a tutorial for newbies and a challenge mode for experts. The Mission Mode hosts around 300 mini-missions that teach you some moves from each of the game's 30 characters, as well as some combos to pull off. Overall, it's a fun little mode to try and challenge yourself to try and pull off some of the game's harder moves, but ultimately, probably more seasoned players will get more out of this than newbies. And bar offline fights against the computer, that is all the single player content here. And I do have to say you get a decent amount of content here if you prefer playing on your own, especially compared to Street Fighter V and Tekken 7, which kinda lacked in the single player department. Online fights are also here, and they come in both ranked and casual, and the only differences between the two is that ranked mode affects your ranks whilst casual don't. A returning feature from Street Fighter V is the ability to search for matches while fighting in arcade mode, which is a nice touch as it does relieve some of the boredom of waiting for a match. Thankfully, the netcode seems to be fine with Infinite, with none of the problems I faced with Street Fighter V at launch. The only thing I would say is that it does take quite a while for the game to find a match, which I gather is more to the player count and not with the actual online system. Time for the presentation now on what the heck happened here. The previous Marvel Vs Capcom game went for a sort of cel-shaded art style that looked fantastic, and this one's ditched it in favour of a realistic look that honestly looks damn right ugly. Human characters like Dante, Chris and Frank West look absolutely terrible. There was a bit of controversy about Chun-Li's face before release on how ugly it looked, and thankfully they have fixed it, but compared this game to Street Fighter V, and it's like this game was honestly made for the last generation of consoles. Sound-wise now, and the game is a mixed bag. The soundtrack for the game sounds actually pretty good. I've heard some familiar tunes from Street Fighter here and some from other games, and they all sound pretty great. It's just the voice acting that could do with a bit of work. Some of the characters like Spider-Man and Iron Man sound great, but characters like Chris Redfield and Morgana sound a bit off. Anyway, conclusion time now, and Marvel vs Capcom Infinite is a really mixed bag. There's plenty of content here, much more than what there was in Street Fighter V, and the fighting is really fun and there's plenty of depth to it thanks to the Infinity Stones. But I do think corners were cut and this was made on a rather small budget, which has led to some questionable presentation issues, some awful looking characters, and a roster that could have been much more. That being said, I had a lot of fun with Infinite and I think it's a great fighter with plenty to keep you coming back for more. Marvel vs Capcom Infinite gets an 8 out of 10 with the title of great. Thank you for watching my review, like, rate and subscribe, and until next time, happy gaming. Bye!